There is sometimes a need in us to be in tune with the world around us. We do this with the things we buy, the places we live, or choose to visit. Well, on this edition of Main Street, we're going to take you to some, if I do say so myself, pretty amazing places that encompass just that. We're going all natural on this edition of Main Street.
Funding for Main Street was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you who support quality programs such as Main Street that appear only on public television.
Hello and welcome to Main Street. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. On this edition of the program, we're taking a trip into the natural world with our stories about beautiful gardens, flowers, and yes, bees. And each in its own right is something very special. Our first story takes us to Oldham County, where the Udell Botanical Gardens keeps the legacy of avid gardener Theodore Klein alive with the creative use of flowers, trees, and architecture. From the castle-like pool house to the greenhouse with a living roof, Udell is a place of serenity and beauty in the middle of a very busy world. Lavender Hills of Kentucky is a small farm located just outside of Brooksville in Bracken County, and is what the owners like to call a work in progress. When they began Lavender Hills, they were the first lavender farm in Kentucky and have since learned some very hard lessons about this difficult crop to grow. More than just a flower, lavender has given the family something to come together around and to teach others about the fascinating uses for this amazing plant. Our final destination is Busy Bee Nursery and Consulting in Barron County, where we look into the very intriguing lives of bees. These insects are an integral and important part of our environment and have been negatively impacted over the last few years in several ways. Shannon and Anthony Trimboli are wildlife biologists who've taken their expertise and started a business they hope will bring back the local bee population, while educating others in ways to make their homes and farms better places for bees and other wildlife. We're taking a look at the world around us on this all-natural edition of Main Street.
Udell was the farm and commercial nursery of a man named Theodore Klein. He raised his 4 children here. They farmed the land, but he made his living as a very well-known nurseryman. In a lot of in his later years, he branched out with the nursery stock he was growing. And he had a lot of clients who knew him and loved him. And after he passed away, they got wind that the property was going to be for sale, that it could very well be developed, and they thought that would be a crime because Theodore had so many wonderful gardens. He had a collection of trees that is now our arboretum from all over the world, and they just felt like there was way too much to lose. Well, Theodore was a really interesting guy, as I said before, a very Renaissance man, and if there was something that he wanted to do, he figured it out and taught himself how to do it. You know, everything from stone carving to the wrought iron work he did. And he also had a sense of humor. He did like whimsy. That's one of the things that is really fun around here, is if you look in some of the gardens, you'll find little characters and you'll see little sayings. And he had a sentimental side to him, I think. You know, when you look at his first stone carvings were the headstones for the family pets. And then that took on a life where he created some of the carvings on the castle, some of the quotes that are on there, the coat of arms. So he had a real vision when he was going to set forth and do a project. He had he always had a vision and carried that vision out, I think, in a really interesting way. Well, the castle, Theodore went to Ireland and fell in love with the architecture over there and decided that he wanted to build his own small-scale castle. And it served a purpose. It was the pool house. And he did everything from lay the floor to build the staircase to create the chandeliers to scale. He couldn't find any that were the right scale for the castle, so he taught himself how to do the wrought iron work. He laid the brick in the castle fireplace, and apparently that was quite a chore, and he decided that it was never to have a fire. The castle is one of the signature features of Udell, and it justifiably so. It's a great structure. Okay, we have 60 acres. The grounds are 60 acres. We have a hiking trail that is about a mile, and it's down by the pond. And you know, you're out in the woods and you could be anywhere. So it's a nice little break from the more organized, more formal gardens. Adrian Bloom designed those gardens, and with the help of 200 plus volunteers in a weekend, his design became a reality. And it's one of the gardens we're very proud of, and we have a volunteer who is extra proud of it, and it is her baby, and she does a wonderful job taking care of it. It's a very colorful garden. It's great for the hummingbirds and the butterflies, and it's just a unique design. The Holly Allée, that was one of Theodore's creations. Originally the row of hollies was arched and formed sort of a tunnel, but over the years that wasn't something that could be maintained. But now it's a wonderful row of trees that sets the stage for weddings for the bride to make her entrance. The secret garden was actually done for Theodore's wife, Martha Lee, and when it was originally done, it was enclosed with yews, so there was only one way to get into it. But over the years, you know, things change, and it's not quite as secret as it once was, but it's a very special garden. The greenhouse is relatively new. It's only about 2 or 3 years old, and it's a very unique structure, the only one of its kind that we're aware of in the region, in the fact that it is solar geothermal and has a green roof. So the backside is a green roof, and that is something that at first you would think, wait a minute, you need all the light you can get in a greenhouse, why would you want to have a green roof? But because of the way the light hits, it made sense. And unfortunately, everybody was on board and thought it was a fantastic idea to have a greenhouse with a green roof. We do use it to propagate plants. We do a lot of research here, and the greenhouse plays a key role in that. One of the things we do out here is we try different plants to see how they do in this region, so that for our plant sale and even to market, that we can offer tried and true plants that will thrive in this area. People come here for a lot of reasons. People come here to relax. People come here to learn about different plants, to get ideas for their own gardens, to ask questions of our staff. People come here to entertain their children, which we love to have kids on the ground and get them outside running around. People come here to have a good time. You know, you can have a good time whether you're just walking and relaxing, or you can have a good time if we're having an event and you know, you're with your friends and it's more of a party atmosphere. But I think people come here because it's a very unique place, and I think everyone who comes here gets something out of it. It is definitely a hidden treasure. I, as the marketing person, wish it wasn't quite so hidden, but it is definitely, Oldham County is very fortunate to have a wonderful resource like Udell. It's a resource on so many levels, and I think that people, need to embrace what we have to offer. If you're a plant geek and you want to learn more about plants, if you're somebody who has children you want to introduce to nature, we can take care of that. If you're a bride getting married, if you want to have an event, if you just want to come out and relax and enjoy nature, if you need to go shopping in the garden gift shop, we have something for everyone out there too. Udell has a lot to offer, and I encourage people to come out and see for themselves.
I'm sold on lavender. We were told that lavender did not grow very well as a crop in Kentucky, mainly because of the humidity and because of the clay soil. So we were told ahead of time that this would be risky, but we are the first commercial lavender farm in the state. Lavender Hills came about 10 years ago. This is the area where I grew up, and I was getting a little homesick. I have 2 daughters, and they were young at the time, and I wanted to share with them the rural lifestyle. My husband is a New York transplant, so trying to get him to buy land was going to take a little convincing. He wanted to know what I could do with the land to maybe make a little profit and use the land without us having to live here. So I started researching, came across the herb lavender. Once we decided to do lavender, my mom got involved. Her farm is where we grew up. We used to grow tobacco. So she gave us a hillside, and with the hillside, this is where we started to plant the lavender. Now the lavender needs to be well drained, warm soil. It doesn't like clay, and funny, Kentucky has clay. So we needed to do a little bit of work on the hillside itself. So we made mounded rows to help with the drainage. We put down weed fabric, we put down a drip tape under the weed fabric, and then we went through, we made X cuts with a little X-Acto blade, 3 feet apart, and we hand planted 400 plants in one day. It grows very quickly, and it made it through the winter, which we didn't know if it would here in Kentucky, but it made it through the winter, and in June the following year, we had 750 bundles that we could harvest. 750 bundles were hung to dry in our old garage, and once they were dried, we were able to store them in boxes, keep them out of the sun, that way they keep their color, and from there we could start making our products. Our learning curve has been huge. We started out just thinking we would sell the dried bundles and that it was more for aroma and decorative, but then we started finding all the benefits. It has medicinal benefits. It has antibacterial, anti-inflammatory properties. So it's great for green clean. Lavender is so versatile. It's actually known as the Swiss Army knife of all herbs because it is so versatile. We started making products for the fragrance. We started with sachets and soaps and candles. We made lavender wands. So we just started small with just a few products. And when we went to festivals, people would ask us, oh, do you have so-and-so? So we looked it up. We figured out how to make so-and-so. A lot of times it is, I didn't know you could do that with lavender. You can eat lavender? So I really like making the food products. I like trying the different food items that we have and trying new ones every year. I have all kinds of ideas to do with the lavender. We have found so many products we can do with it. Now we have workshops that we offer. We have tours, we have luncheons. People will come and they're going, what do you do with lavender? And so the women especially, they want to know all about the products. The men, they want to know all about the farming process. So it has been very educational for anyone who comes to our booth, who sees our shop, who comes to the farm. We try to make it an educational visit. Our lavender survived for about 8 years before we had any weather problems. Now there were a few times that we may have had an early frost or we had a late frost, but in the winter of 2013-14, we had a really bad winter and it did kill a lot of our lavender. And then the year 2014-15 did it all in. So it took out all 1,000 plants that we had and we're basically starting over. We were so heartbroken because we had such a beautiful field. People could come and see our lavender and it was producing and it was gorgeous and it smelled wonderful. And now we're starting again. So now we've sort of focused on some other things to do with our lavender while we get back on our feet in planting our new lavender. My children, they were the reason that I wanted the land, and they quickly found out that anytime I brought them to the farm, it was work. So it's a family operation, and we get to share time together, and we get to share the same work ethic. So we have good quality products based on that hard-working ethic that we all grew up with. I hope I have passed this to my kids.
But we're losing all the pollinators, butterflies, native bees, they're all declining. It's probably a huge conglomeration of a lot of things that's leading to that, but we really don't know.
There has been a lot of interest in honeybees, especially lately. It's really hit the media big as far as declines that are being seen in the numbers, how important they are to agriculture and everything. So they serve a very important agricultural role for us. Then there's also the native bees that aren't getting as much publicity and as much research, because they're much harder to research as well, because our native bees are all solitary bees, or mostly solitary bees. So they're a lot harder to study than, say, a honeybee hive where you've got 40,000 bees all together, and you can move in and put it exactly where you want to do it. Can't do that as well with the native bees, but there's some of the research that's coming out is also saying that the native bees are also declining as well. So, and they actually do a lot of help with the pollination of some of the crops as well, especially on smaller farms. So both the honeybees and the native bees are extremely important just in the whole ecological system.
Hopefully we figure it out and we can figure out why the bees are declining. Part of it could be genetics. The genetics of bees is a convoluted mess compared to most animals. Their genetics is very complicated.
Busy Bee Nursery and Consulting is part of our farm that we've got here. And what we do with Busy Bee Nursery and Consulting is we grow plants that are good for honeybees, native pollinators, and also wildlife conservation. And then in addition to just growing and selling the plants, most of which are native plants, we also will go out to people's farms or homes and consult with them and help them figure out what's the best things to plant in their area to meet their goals on their land, or just walk around the property with them and help them learn what are the trees that are growing on their farm, what are the plants that are already there and flowering, and kind of help them get to know some of the biology and ecology of their land, and then how they might want to, other things they might want to do to help meet their goals as far as pollinators or wildlife or that sort of stuff. We have honeybees in two sets of hives, two different types of hives. The long hive that we have is called a top bar hive. And that one is one that's becoming more popular, but it's not one that you traditionally see a lot of. And one of the ways the top bar hive is good for working and stuff, they both got their pros and cons and different things that they're better at than the other one. Top bar hives are really nice though, because you can pull out one bar at a time and look at it. So one bar of honey or a brood or nectar is not very heavy. And it's very easy to just pull out one, look at it, put it down. Pull out another one, look at it, put it down. And you're opening up the hive just a little piece at a time. So there's pros there to the just the way you work it and stuff like that, and not having to lift a lot of weight at once. You're not going to get a lot of honey production out of those. Not like the traditional Langstroth hives, the big tall ones that you can see. But one of the cons with those is that you have to lift the whole box at once and put it down. And those can get heavy, depending on how big they are, how full they are of honey. Honey weighs a lot, actually. So they're harder to work for a lot of people, especially if you don't have that upper body strength to lift them. When we're going through the hive, some of the things that we're looking at is just the general health of the hive. We're looking for signs of those viruses. We're looking for the queen, or signs of the queen. So are there eggs? Are there larvae of different ages in there? How much nectar do they have? How much pollen do they have? How much honey do they have? Just a whole bunch of different factors that help us tell, is this hive doing really well? Or is it having problems? Do we need to try and do something else with it? And then be able to make those adjustments and changes as we go from there. We try and have the healthiest bees we possibly can. The top bar hive, we're really watching it. We've got two of them right now. And that one, as this came out of the winter, as one hive. That was one hive. The spring, it was doing really, really well, having lots and lots of bees. So we did what's called a split. And we moved half of them over to the second hive. And so now we've got two hives. And that's great because now we have two hives, but you have to watch, especially that first year, and make sure that because you split them now, you've got fewer bees bringing in pollen and nectar and everything. So you've got to make sure that they store enough nectar, they store enough pollen. Are they having issues? This time of year, the bees aren't out foraging as much. A lot of the flowers that they use aren't blooming at this time of year. So stronger hives will go to weaker hives and actually rob the honey out of it and take it back to the stronger hive. And so not only does then the weaker hive lose that honey, but those bees don't want to give up their honey. They've worked long and hard to get it. So you get a lot of fighting going on as well, which can reduce the number of worker bees, forager bees, and in a really bad case can actually have your queen killed. I love it. I love it. I've always loved doing this sort of thing, so it's just an outgrowth of me, so.
Yeah, anything in agriculture is a labor of love. You are not going to get rich in general agriculture. It's just not going to happen, not fast anyway. You can make some money at it, but you are most of the time just doing it because you like to do it. So you have to find something that you can sell at a premium, and you know, honey sells at a premium. It's a high value crop, and that's what everybody thinks of with bees, but there's actually even more if you're selling bees. So if you're a small breeder, you can sell queens, you can sell nucleus hives, and have a decent income off of small acreage if you know what you're doing and if you stick with it. It's definitely not something you're just going to go read a book and say, hey, I'm going to go raise a bunch of bees today, let's go buy some. You're going to have an empty hive pretty soon and wonder what happened. There's a big learning curve to bees. You have to love bugs and you have to love bees. If you're going to be a successful beekeeper, you got to be an entomologist, you got to be a biologist, you got to be an arachnologist, a pathologist, a microbiologist, and a witch doctor. There's a whole lot of just guessing stuff in there. It comes with a learning curve, and what works for me might not work for you. Shannon looks at bees differently than I look at bees as far as going through the hive and how we do it. Everybody's different. I know some really good beekeepers that have hundreds and hundreds of hives. One thing they do on their farm works on that farm. They have the exact same bees, they move them to another farm, those things don't work. So, you know, you're always having to adjust, and that's any agriculture, but with bees you really have to stay on top of it.
I would love to be able to, as we grow our bee populations and our hives and stuff, be able to do more work and have more of the honey production, more of the bee production. We want to actually be able to help new beekeepers get started with new bees and stuff like that. Probably be another year or so before that, but that's one of the goals, long-term goals, is to really be able to start helping make our property better for all the wildlife, for the bees, the pollinators, the songbirds, the deer, the turkey, the bobcat, the foxes, everything we've got here. Really be able to make it better for that, but also help others be able to help improve their property, to, if they want bees, to be able to have honeybees on their property. If they want to have better property for deer or turkey or butterflies or native bees, to be able to help them to do that, to really pass along that conservation mode. So help people learn about it. And then also be able to have a farm that is self-sustaining, because so many agricultural endeavors nowadays, you're working another job to pay for the farming. And I would really like to see it be something that it could eventually pay for itself on as well, which is really hard to do with the areas that we're looking at more with the honeybees, the native pollinators, and the plants, and duck eggs, but and ducks. But I mean, it is our goal.
Well, we've come to the end of our show, but we hope you've enjoyed this peek into how some of us have taken advantage of the natural bounty the world has to offer. Our trip to the Udall Botanical Gardens gave us a glimpse into a peaceful place filled with beautiful gardens and special places that lets visitors create special memories while taking in nature in all of its variety. The lavender flower can be considered ordinary, but it has some interesting uses and can be more than a little difficult to grow. But the owners of Lavender Hills of Kentucky took a risk with their small farm and have reaped the rewards in some beautiful and fragrant ways. Finally, we got some insight into the lives and habits of bees from Shannon and Anthony Trimboli, the owners of Busy Bee Nursery and Consulting. The worrisome decline of the bee population is only one of the reasons these wildlife biologists have taken their expertise and turned it into a business to help others learn about creating attractive and nurturing spaces for these vital insects. You know, it's always fascinating to learn something new about the world around us and how everyday things can be so useful. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of the program, and we want to remind you that our producers are always looking for stories. You can check out the address on our screen, and you can find archived editions of the program there as well. Until next time, I'm Barbara Deed, and remember, we are just around the corner on Main Street.